Well, tell me, mama, what's going on? Tell me, darling, what's going on? I'm going back.
Welcome back, everybody. Bacon and Egg Show, show number 23, September 26, 2020. Jay, you have a little announcement to make before we get started here.
Yeah, thanks to all of our listeners, all of our guests, anybody that's been a part of the show. We just want to let you guys know we'll be brought to you interruption free today, no commercial breaks. Our Zoom sponsor is Boxhead Frames in Schulenburg, Texas. If you need a custom frame, contact the show and we'll get you into contact with Boxhead Frames. It's good stuff. I got one on my wall here at the house. So thanks to Boxhead Frames for sponsoring our Zoom today and making sure that we're interruption free.
Love it. Love it. Well, we got a couple special guests with us today. Today's a big preview show we're doing. We've got Texas at Texas Tech today. We're going to have this out before game time, so hopefully you're enjoying this before kickoff, 2:30 today. And welcome, guys. We got Mike Holland with us. We got Jack Densmore with us, our Texas and Texas Tech insiders. And guys, let's jump right into it. This is an interesting matchup, right, for both teams. Sitting at 1-0, where are we at with kind of the big picture heading into this game?
Yeah, I guess I'll kind of take the lead here.
Yeah, go ahead.
So before last year's game, the 5 previous contests were all played within a touchdown. So, obviously Tech has always given Texas fits over the years. So I think it could come down to, really what Texas Tech's defense is going to be able to do today. So obviously we saw last game, Sam, obviously against a weaker competition, just looked like a cyborg out there. And so I think that'll be a big factor. If Texas Tech can get a couple of turnovers, really could change the game. We'll see what the crowd effect obviously has. You've been watching a lot of these games. You haven't really seen much factor in that. So I think for me, when you kind of just boil it down, it's going to be, can Texas Tech create some turnovers? If they can't, I think obviously that Vegas has it back up to 17.5. I think it could be, another Texas victory and by double digits.
Jack, big picture for you, sort of 25,000 foot view before we dive into things. And those of you that have listened to the show, sorry, Jack, for asking you a question and then talking. Jack's been on the show before. He did some Texas Tech stuff with us earlier. So we want to thank Jack for coming back on again. We're going quad screen today. And you might not be able, you can't see Jack, but you'll definitely be able to hear him. He's going to bring some good stuff to the table. So Jack, sort of your 25,000 foot view before we really dive deep into today's game.
Yeah, pretty much what Michael said. It's really going to be how good the Texas Tech defense is going to be today. They struggled a bit against Houston Baptist, which they have a good quarterback, but so does Texas. So it was almost kind of like a preview a little bit about what might happen today. Unless Texas Tech can pull something out and hopefully get an interception or two against Ellinger, which I don't know if that's possible. On the other side, one thing that the Texas Tech offense needs to do is Alan Bowman needs to work on his accuracy. There was a couple of bad throws he made against Houston Baptist that Texas would definitely, take advantage of early on, especially. So Texas Tech odds are, could keep Longhorns' run game in check. There's not really been someone that's really, and we've only had one game, but there wasn't anyone that really stepped up quite to the plate so far for the Longhorns. But it's probably going to be a air raid kind of game today, I imagine.
Yeah, I could definitely see this one going classic 5-hour Big 12 game. I think it was the over-unders at like 70 points or something total in this. It's like, I think this is pretty safe to take the over in this game. But let's kind of talk about this matchup here with the Texas offense and the Texas Tech defense. I know that, and Michael, I'll come back to you on this. I know there's kind of been some mention about Texas really wanting to establish the run game here early in the conference slate. As you know, as we talked about, like, or Jack just mentioned with like the Houston Baptist passing attack and those kinds of things, is this one of those things where it's going to be really tempting for Texas to, put up 50 for Sam to put up 50 pass attempts today, when maybe the best thing for them to do is to establish that run game? Might not light up the scoreboard quite the same, but is there a longer term benefit of going on the road, being able to run the ball successfully, even if there's some moments where it doesn't seem to be working, but gutting it out and really trying to set that tone for the rest of the season?
Yeah, so to that point, I think with Mike Irsich coming in, I think he's just going to do what he needs to do. I don't really think that he has that mindset where, hey, I need to come out, not in the Big 12 slate. Kind of saw it last week where there's a lot of runs to that right side to try to like break in that right side of the offensive line. But I think Irsich is just one of those offensive coordinators where he's going to just try to exploit a defense, regardless of how it needs to get done. I don't think his overall view on things is it doesn't matter if you get 500 yards, 200 in the air, 300 rushing. I think those kind of days are gone in college football now, where I think the stat under Mac Brown was like, you get to X amount was like 100 rushing yards or, 200 rushing yards almost guaranteed a victory. I don't know if those days really exist anymore in college football, especially since you don't really see these big time, other than like Chuba Hubbard and a few other guys, you don't really see these guys, taking over games. So I think he's just really going to come out and try to exploit what happened with the Houston Baptist game. I think Jack kind of summed it up. It's like, obviously that kid's we talked about it last time, that kid's really good. So I think he's going to watch a lot of film on that game, obviously. And I think you'll see Texas come out pass heavy, but just try to work in the run where you can. And I think Texas would probably try to work on that run game if they're able to build up a 2-3 touchdown lead, or have a safer halftime lead and really try to establish it maybe in the second half. Because the last thing you want to do is give Tech opportunities. Obviously, you're not too worried anymore about shrinking like the amount of possessions in the game, because obviously you have Sam Ehlinger and we saw what Texas offense could look like. So for me, at least, I think Irsich's game plan probably just come out and really spread them out and try to obviously exploit mismatches in the passing game while working in some of the run game.
Jack, last week we saw Houston Baptist, that quarterback, and you and Mike both mentioned it. The quarterback is an NFL draft prospect. I mean, he would have done that to many Big 12 defenses. But the problem seemed to be that they really had their way with Texas Tech over the middle of the field. The position groups there with the linebackers and the safeties in the middle of the field, do you see there being somebody in one of those position groups that could step up and really make a difference there for Texas Tech on defense?
I really think that the linebackers as a whole are going to be key in this game, both in stopping the run and creating pressure on Ehlinger, because Ehlinger is an NFL draft prospect too. So if that means anything, Texas could also have their way in the middle of the field a lot as well. What needs to really step up is the secondary, obviously. But I really think the linebackers today are going to create a lot of the pressure that hopefully can lead to some turnovers for the Red Raiders. But we'll just have to see.
Yeah, and the defensive coordinator over there, Keith Patterson, is the second year with Tech. He came out. He started there when the head coach Matt Wells did. He's really known for forcing turnovers. Like, that's his deal. And Mike, you touched on that earlier, where if Tech forces turnovers, and Jack, you said the same thing. Like, that's what it's going to take for Texas Tech to be in this game, and that just happens to be what Patterson is sort of known for with his style of coaching. So we'll see what that happens. Or we'll see what happens with that. But Kerry, I think you brought up an interesting point a little bit ago. It's like, is it is it almost necessary to get the running game going here? We didn't see it last week, or 2 weeks ago, I should say, in Texas's first game. And it's not for a lack of talent. It's not for a lack of, that it just happened to be that to win that game, Juricic was going to throw the ball just like he did. And it's going to be a game-to-game thing, right, Mike? Like you said, I mean, the game plan is going to just be, we're going to do whatever we need to do to win, whether that's run the ball 40 times or Sam throw the ball 60, right, Mike?
Yeah, definitely. I think with all the luxuries that Texas has right now, with a lot of returning starters, and then I think Juricic's playbook is going to allow for different types of game flows as we go through Big 12 play. So I think I wouldn't be surprised to see Texas come out and run the ball 30. If they have success and come out and run the ball 30, 40 times this game, if they can get it done, obviously they want to do that, because that's obviously going to keep Sam healthy, which is key to the entire season. But at the end of the day, like kind of mentioned, I think you just want to make sure that you secure the victory. So if you think the exploitable matchup is Texas Tech secondary, I think Juricic just goes there, and he goes there early and often. So what do you think, Kerry?
Yeah, I think that question is, or that philosophy is really interesting to me, because I think over the years we've seen coaching staffs, whether it's in the NFL or at Texas or really any football team you follow closely week to week, where you're watching a game and something's just not working, and the frustration of exploit something, like you're able to get the ball downfield. Why are you sticking with the running game, in these certain kind of situations? And then you hear the coaches afterwards say, well, we're really trying to, establish the run and those kinds of things. It's like, so that philosophy to me is always fascinating about, like, do you just do what you have to do in a situation to exploit a defense or win a game and to its maximum potential, versus the, trying to establish a culture and, whatever those kinds of things you want to call it. But I think to me, this running game thing is going to be the really interesting thing to see, because, and Jack, you can go into this a little bit more, but to me, this seems like the kind of game and the kind of situation where Matt Wells is trying to build that culture. If this defense can have a good day for Tech, that is going to go a long way towards what he's trying to build there and the philosophy he's trying to instill. And the run game's a big part of that. And if that they can take away that one, at least make Texas, I said, like, make them one-dimensional, but at least take out the running game from Texas, I think that's huge for Tech. And then it comes down to the secondary, as Jack mentioned. But Jack, what do you think about that in terms of the defense? And this is kind of this running game matchup here, and trying to play into this culture shift that Matt Wells is trying to instill.
Yeah, I mean, last week Tech only allowed 28 rushing yards. But they did allow 572 passing yards. But clearly, they are able to stop the run game, and I think they have a good chance of stopping the run game in this game. It's just, can you stop Sam Ehlinger from throwing the ball successfully 60 times or so? And can you cause at least a turnover or two, whether that be make them fumble on a sack, or, deflect the ball, get an interception? That's really the big question. I imagine, like Michael said, that UT will probably start off running the ball, and I think the Tech's defense will kind of answer to that, and then Sam Ehlinger will just let it loose, and Tech won't be able to catch up. That's kind of my analysis, my pre-analysis of what will happen today.
Yeah, and I think that's, to be fair though, like, it wasn't that they only allowed that many rushing yards on 7 carries. I mean, it was on 20 or so carries, so they did show that they do have a propensity of standing up to the run. So that it'll be interesting to see. I for one would love to see the running game established. I think that's, Mike, the point you made about keeping Sam healthy and upright. The fewer passes he has to throw as the season progresses, the better. And it's not like they don't have a stable of running backs right now that are talented enough be interchangeable basically and just rotate in and out to this Yurchich offense. So that's really what I'm hoping to see, is to see that run game get established early, and then Jack, like you were sort of predicting, that then Sam gets his after that. So I mean, and looking at it, Jake Smith is out again with the hamstring. Whittington's out because of his knee. So Mike, Brendan Schooler is starting the transfer who scored one last week and looked good on a couple of catches. Do you see anybody else on that wide receiver crew stepping up today?
Yeah, so I think obviously with Smith and Whittington going down, creates an opportunity for Schooler, who I think has only practiced 15 times in this offense, which is going to be interesting. So I think while he might be named a starter and will be out there for probably 25% of the snaps, I think you're going to see a lot of 12 personnel again with 2 tight ends. And then you're going to see basically the outside receivers, Josh Moore, Tariq Black, and you'll see obviously a few other guys come in to rotate in that position. So I think, Schooler is interesting. He caught a touchdown in the first game. He's got a lot of experience. Obviously, his brother is going to be chasing him down, so that'll be kind of interesting.
Yeah.
So I think you'll see more 12 personnel because they've been just hyping it up all preseason, and then they showed that. I think they ran 43% of the snap count. Snap count was out of 12 personnel. So Brewer is obviously going to be big again in this matchup, and I think out of 12 personnel, you should be able to run the ball because you've got 2 tight ends on the field. I mean, they were using guys, Brewer split out while Wiley was in the backfield as like a fullback type. So I think, obviously we're going to try to be a little more multiple with the 12 personnel because you are down your 2 slot receivers right now. And Schooler I don't think he's quite ready for, a 70% snap count. You might see a little bit of Kai Money. I don't think you're going to see a lot of him though. So it'll be interesting to see what's going to happen in that aspect. I think you could see, if there's some struggles early, I think you could see Sam pull it down and run some a little bit, which we didn't see much of in the first game. Obviously, you want to keep him healthy and everything, but let's say Texas Tech gets a couple of turnovers, scores 17-14. I think you could see Sam and Yurcich maybe open up the quarterback run game a little bit more. So would be interesting to see.
Well, let's flip it around now. Let's talk about this Tech offense versus the Texas defense. Jack, where is this offense in this kind of, we continue to talk about Matt Wells and kind of this, philosophical change at Tech and everything. Where's this offense at now going into, what is this, Wells' second season now, right, at Tech?
Yeah, it's his second season, and last week they had an excellent run game with Sir Roderick Thompson, and Alan Bowman had a few mistakes, but he ended up finishing it off with a really good game. And nothing against TJ Vasher, but I feel like Dalton Rigdon and Keyshawn Carter have really been stealing the show. Even last season, they kind of been taking the limelight away from Vasher and just kind of been explosive. So Texas Tech has become kind of known for explosive offense, and they seem to be keeping with that trend. So
there's a freshman receiver that Texas Tech has, Jalen Polk. He caught 5 passes last week for Tech, 56 yards. He's a kid out of Lufkin. A lot of it was on sort of outside screens. It seemed like quick screens to the outside, and then he follows his blocks and make yards. To me, I think for Tech to be effective, that screen game is going to have to be on point. They're going to have to get the ball out of Bowman's hands quickly and throw those quick passes. Is Polk somebody, Jack, that the Texas Tech coaches and around the program, is he already thought of pretty highly?
I'm pretty sure because I think Lufkin's had a good history with Tech with Kiki Kuti. I mean, Kuti's now a NFL wide receiver. So yeah, and he's got a lot of potential. Obviously, he's just a freshman, so he's got good 2 more years, 3 including this one. So he should be interesting to watch as well. So yeah, I think he's probably making waves throughout the coaching staff.
Well, Mike, let's talk about the Horns defense here. It's Tech. We know, and they're going to move the ball. They're going to score some points. What does the Texas defense need to do now under Chris Ash to? I don't want to use the term, like the whole like bend but don't break kind of thing, but like, what does this defense need to do to kind of soothe some of the fears and concerns that Texas fans had this offseason? And even going back to last season, the defense, historically bad Texas defense. Like, what does this defense need to do? What do you need to see from this defense to feel better about it going forward deeper into conference play?
Yeah, this is what it comes down to for me is the Texas secondary against the Tech receivers, because obviously Tech has pretty lethal. If you look at the matchups, I would give Texas Tech a strong edge in the receiver area. So this is going to be one where Texas fans are going to be looking at, and at the end of the day, you're going to look at it and you're going to say, Chris Ash, yes or no right here, I think. Anything under 28, I think, is going to be, a huge victory. Anything over that, and is it just more of the same? Honestly, for me, and I think it's going to be huge what's going to happen here in the secondary. So, Josh Thompson played really well at the corner spot. He's going to be matched up on either Vasher or I hate to butcher the name, but it's like Eric. What is it? Ekwazuma or whatever.
Azukama.
Azukama. Okay, yeah. I butcher his name every time. So, I mean, these guys are talented. They're great. Vasher is, I believe, the nephew of former Longhorn great Nathan Vasher. So. He's got that revenge factor there. Little sibling rivalry, family rivalry there. And then obviously Jack hit on it. You have Rigdon. Keyshawn Carter looked great last game. So working that slot area. And so I think Chris Adamora is going to be tested in that spur position. What is that spur position? It's basically a hybrid linebacker / safety who's going to have cornerback responsibilities. So, and hearing Chris Hatch talk about that spur position, it's the most important position on the defense as far as what you need to do on a play-to-play basis, because you're going to have to come in and try to stop the run with Thompson. So he's going to need to play in the box. He's going to need to match up against either Rigdon or Carter on a lot of plays, and then, obviously try to provide great coverage. So I think this is going to tell you a lot about what this spur position does and what this, this new, scheme is going to look like. So, I'm nervous. I'm nervous every time you play Texas Tech. So, I mean, is it going to be a 45-41 game? I don't think Texas wants to play a complete shootout with this. And I think the big thing for Texas is going to be how Joseph Osai and the defensive line perform, because, Tech uses the quick hitting passing game. Bowman's really great at short accuracy. So can Osai and those guys up front create any pressure? Is going to really tell because you need to help out the secondary, because we don't really know what we have. To be honest, there's still some question marks back there other than Deshaun Jameson and Caden Stearns. So what do you guys think?
Yeah, when we talked about after last game, we talked about that there's going to be a 4-man rotation at corner no matter what. Those guys are going to all get time, and this is going to be a true test for that rotation to see how they can hold up. I think that when you look at Keyshawn Carter, how long has TJ Vasher been in Lubbock?
He's the Jordan Shipley of Texas Tech.
No kidding, man.
Kidding. Like, just the guy that you feel like you never mind. He's just been there forever. And then he's caught a couple, but Vasher has scored a couple touchdowns against Texas in his career.
He can be there next year too with the extra year of eligibility. He can be.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
And he probably will be. Ezukanma,
8th year senior.
Yeah, he'll be there. Ezukanma went for 135 yards and a score last year against Texas. Like, he's shown that he can already do. He's not afraid of this stage. like you guys mentioned Rigdon. The thing for me in this game will be, because as of right now, Roderick Thompson, despite his arrest for street racing over the summer, that he was arrested on Monday.
Did he win at least?
He better.
I guess he did
I-
because his other teammate got arrested that night, but he didn't. So
It's like the whole thing about like if there's a bear
Well
chasing you in the
Right.
woods, it's like you don't have to be faster than the bear, just faster than the other person you're with,
Yeah,
kind of
faster
thing.
than
you
your
know?
buddy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, Jay. Sorry to cut you off, man. I've been wanting to ask that question.
No, that's all right. No, but he's gonna play, and if Texas can make Texas Tech one-dimensional, if they can totally take away Thompson, at least to the point of being ineffective at those if it's 1st and 10, trying to start 2nd and 5. Not that Texas Tech's quick screens and quick outside passes aren't like runs anyway for the same purpose. But for me, if you can take away Thompson and eliminate that threat and put the game in Bowman's hands, I think that's going to be the recipe for success here for Texas, to force Bowman into take away the short stuff, make him go through his progressions, make his 2nd, 3rd, 4th reads even, make him throw down the field. And that's when your Caden Stearns can come into play. And I see a big game out of him today, wanting to make a point, come out and make a statement early on in the Big 12 schedule and in this season. So that to me is going to be the key, is really shutting down that run game early. Is there any other weapon, Jack, that Texas Tech has that we haven't discussed? I mean, it's pretty straightforward with these receivers and their starting running back.
yeah, it's pretty straightforward. The only thing I can imagine is if Matt Wells tries to get the tight ends more involved. I'm not sure if that's in their game plan. It didn't seem like that. I guess it'd be 2 weeks ago. So I guess that's a wild card maybe that Wells could have, but I'm not too optimistic about tight ends being involved so much in the passing game.
Jack, how do you feel about the Tech O-line coming into this game?
They need to get Alan Bowman some help. Texas Tech has been known for throwing the deep passes, throwing mid-range passes, and I think they wanted to try and do that 2 weeks ago, but the O-line just couldn't quite give Bowman enough time to throw it. And on the flip side, Bowman was probably hanging on to it for too long as well. So there needs to be some kind of back and forth there. Bowman needs to get rid of it quicker if they're going to throw it deeper, and the O-line needs to try and alleviate pressure as much as possible for him as well.
Yeah, I think just one thing on just related to that. I mean, I think that Mike, you mentioned this earlier. To me, this matchup between the Tech offense and Texas defense comes down to the Tech O-line. I think this is going to be kind of that game where Chris Ash wants to turn guys like Joseph Osai loose off the edge. I think we might see more Alfred Collins trying to get up and bust the middle of that line and get some more pressure. And to me, that's kind of what this hinges on. I think if the Tech O-line can protect and keep the Texas pass rush at bay, then I think Tech is going to have some success on offense. But I think if the pass rush kicks in for Texas and they start getting a lot of pressure on Bowman, I think Texas will be in good shape defensively, and where that secondary is going to get a lot of help. But yeah, that's what I think. We're seeing kind of some not unknowns, but kind of like Jack mentioned with the Tech O-line, like we're talking about with the secondary for Texas. It's like, do we really know what we have, kind of thing? And like, I think both are going to be put to the test today.
Yeah, Mike, that's actually what I was going to ask you. When you look at the defensive line here and maybe even working some of those linebackers in, Texas Tech had some problems with blocking Houston Baptist pass rushers. I feel like Chris Ash is going to watch that game film and and really focus and take advantage of some of those inadequacies that Texas Tech displayed against Houston Baptist.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see what Ash does as far as how many guys he's going to bring. So it'll be interesting to watch early on. Does he stick with 4 down linemen and try to get there? Working as Kerry said, Osai, trying to get him loose. Or, does he, get into man coverage and bring 5 or even 6 on 3rd downs? And I think that's going to be real telling as far as what Chris Ash's game plan is going to be kind of going forward, because Texas Tech's not the only team with a high-powered throwing offense in the Big 12. So the only thing I can think of, though, is, obviously these guys go against Sam Ehlinger every day and the Texas offense. So hopefully they're prepared and can, kind of slow this down. I mean, I'm not going to lie, I'm a little nervous because I believe Chris Ash was the right hire, but I don't want to be at the end of the day wondering if this is just the same old thing that we've been used to, where we can't, hold a Tech or, an Oklahoma or Oklahoma State under 30 to save our lives. When at the end of the day, I mean, honestly, if they give up over 30, you won't feel great about the defense, but, Texas still obviously have an opportunity to win on the offensive side of the ball. So I think it's just going to be real interesting because, UTEP wasn't very talented. I think Texas just kind of had its way. So this is going to be a real test, and we'll see what happens. But I think he's going to try to create pressure with the front 4 to where you can play some matchup combinations with zone and man and do different things. And if they're able to get there on 4 down linemen or, create some havoc with 4 down linemen, obviously that's going to be a huge success for Texas. If they need to start bringing 5, 6, you could see Tech rip off some, 5-yard slants for, home run balls and using Vasher, over the top. So kind of like the year before. So it's all going to be interesting to see what's going to happen, how DeMarvin and Overshown, the linebackers, play because they're going to be put to the test too. So I think it's just going to be a great test overall, and I'm excited to kind of see where this goes and a little nervous at the same time. So,
yeah, I think we're going to see I think we'll see Ash bring some blitzes early. Mike, to your point about the trying to get there with 4, Tech is going to throw the ball so much. I think Tech will, just like they normally do, they throw to set up the run. That's been the key to Texas Tech's running success for the longest time. So I think we'll see that early on. I do think there will be I think Chris Ash is going to test his secondary early on, get a feel for how they're going to respond to the quick barrage of Texas Tech passes. I think we will see some instances where he's going to put them on an island early and see what they have. So later on in the game, in a big spot, he knows he can dial something back up again. That's the sort of thing that I'm looking for from Chris Ash as a defensive coordinator. That's what I want to see anyway. And I believe that's sort of going to be his mindset going into this. But it's going to be just as important to be able to get to the quarterback with 4 today and sit back and make Bowman, even if he has time, make him beat you with his arm. Because he'll pull it down and run a little bit too when he needs to, but make him beat you with his arm. Because like Jack mentioned earlier, he's been a little bit mistake prone, and he's thrown 4 interceptions in his last 3 games. So if you're Texas, you have to be looking to take advantage of that inaccuracy.
yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, I think it's going to be a fun game. This could go a lot of different ways, I think. And I think, at least for Texas fans, interested to see which direction we may be going, what kind of identity is established in this game. Jack, what's like on the Texas Tech side? How do you guys kind of shake this game out? I mean, is this kind of like, hey, what's the future look like? What direction are we going in? Or how do y'all kind of view this game this afternoon?
Yeah, for ever since, the end of the Mike Leach era, Texas Tech fans have always just wanted to get some good Big 12 wins against good Big 12 teams. We've always struggled against Texas and Oklahoma, West Virginia, and time after time, having those losses has been really disappointing for Texas Tech fans because we always kind of remember the Mike Leach era when we were the powerhouse back then, and then everything kind of fell apart for the Red Raiders, and it's always been trying to catch back up to that. And Tech fans really want it's almost kind of like Texas fans. They want a solid defense as well, and that's always been kind of a struggle in the Big 12 because other conference fans always kind of make fun of the Big 12 and their defenses because of the high final scores at the end. So it's not too different than what Texas fans feel.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. I think Big 12 gets a knock, but look at all the guys that the Big 12 puts in the NFL. I mean, I'm watching
Right.
all the games and I'm looking at, Kyler Murray and, CeeDee Lamb from Oklahoma. You got Texas that has got Malcolm Brown. You got like all these guys in Texas Tech. All these guys are from the Big 12. It feels like on the offensive side of the ball. So I think it's a little unfair that, obviously the Big 12 gets that rap. But I think when it comes down to it, at the end of the day, like Oklahoma won the Big 12 title, yes, because of Kyler Murray, but I think they had a adequate enough defense, and it's what Big 12 team is going to have that above average defense is the one that kind of sets itself apart each year. You look at when Texas won the Big 12 title in 2005 and 2009, those are some of the best defensive teams that we've fielded over the last 25 years. So even though we were scoring 60 points a game, I think it does come down in the Big 12 to who can get stops and who can create turnovers is going to be, the team that can set itself apart because we know everyone's going to score points. So, Kerry, what's your thought, Jay?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Kyler Murray. That wasn't a Big 12 defense he played against last week. And he just, he's doing it week to week there with the Arizona Cardinals. And people are like, oh, look at how amazing this guy is. And it's like, yeah, but, everybody wants to knock on the Big 12 when, offenses are scoring that much. Yeah, but there's a lot of talent on the offensive side of the ball in the Big 12, and they're showing it in the NFL, like you said, Mike.
I can think all 4 Tech receivers could have a chance to play in the NFL.
Yeah.
That's what's kind of crazy about it.
And that's what, you see receivers year after year. You had Jalen Reagor from TCU get drafted. You have CeeDee Lamb,
Colin Johnson and Duvernay.
Yeah. There's a ton of talent there, but yeah, I think I'm going to ask everybody here kind of the same question is, I think to tie that in with today's game, I think that's the one thing that I feel like I need to see from Texas coming out of this game, regardless of whatever the score line ends up being. I want to see the defense perform, because we know Tech is going to score points, right? I want to see it perform to the level where they're making stops in key situations. They're getting pressures on the quarterback, and the secondary is making plays on the ball, and they look dialed in, and they're tackling well, and those kinds of things where you feel better. I don't see this Texas defense shutting out Tech or Oklahoma or anybody in this conference schedule. That's just not how this conference works. It's not how college football works really anymore. So you're not going to go pitch a shutout. Just look like you can make stops when you need to. And, and so that's kind of what I want to see. Jack, what is the one thing we can either say the one thing that you want to see out of Tech today, or the one thing that needs to happen for Tech to win today?
It's definitely going to be the turnovers because I think Tech's really missing Douglas Coleman, because Coleman was I think he was the NCAA leader in interceptions, if I'm right about that, last year. I could be wrong about that. At least in the Big 12, he was outstanding regarding interceptions, and they need somebody. They need a Coleman to stand up again in this secondary for this year, and they have a lot of potential. It's just no one's quite stepped up just yet. So might be able to see that today, and if that happens, it could be the necessary shock to the Longhorns that they weren't quite expecting just yet, and could lead to kind of shuffling the Longhorns game plan. giving the edge to the Red Raiders early on or later on in the game when it comes down to that within a touchdown score. So
Mike, or let's bounce it over to Jay here. To you, in your mind, what is either the thing you want to see, the one thing that you want to see, or kind of the one thing that has to happen for Texas to win in the fashion that you think they should, or however you want to see this play out?
Yeah, they stop the run game and make Bowman try to throw the ball, as many times as possible. The more he throws, the more I feel like he'll make a mistake. Texas will capitalize on that today and force some turnovers. That's the sort of thing that I feel like needs to happen and probably will happen. I wouldn't be surprised to see them break off like a long run. It just always seems to happen that, and Thompson's talented enough to do it. So if you look at like the rushing totals, and he has 80 yards, he'll probably break off a 60-yarder or something at one point and just break free, and then Texas will shut him down the rest of the time. That's the sort of thing that I think needs to happen for Texas to be successful and win this one. Sam's going to be Sam. He's going to get his. I would also like to see Texas's running game established to help take a little bit of load off of Sam. I think that's an important first step for the season-long progression of this team. But just for today, it's stopping the run for Texas Tech and making Bowman make mistakes.
Mike, what do you think? What's the one thing you want to see from the Horns today, and also kind of the one thing that needs to happen for the Horns to win?
Yeah, for me, it's defensively. It's all defensive. It is, what is the secondary going to do against talented receivers and a talented quarterback, strong running game? I mean, Thompson's no slouch. I mean, it's a really good runner. So I think for me, man, I'm just, kind of shaking right now thinking about how the Texas secondary is going to perform. And if we can generate pass rush, like Joseph Asai, a little quiet last game, but obviously only played 2 quarters. So I think for me, him, and then what is that spur position with Chris Adamora going to look like against this, true spread offense? I'm just really paying attention to the defensive side of the ball. Yeah, I would love to see the run game get going. Would love to see 200, 300 yards rushing. But I think at the end of the day, I don't know if Tech can stop Sam Mellinger. And so really I'm just kind of focused on the defensive side, and whether this is going to be a 35-28 or 31 game, or if this is going to be like a 42 to 24-21 game, I think would be more of a success in my eyes. Whereas the other way, would kind of just be like, well, we're just going to have to rely on Sam to to do this all year for me. So that's where I'm at with it. So, Kerry, where are you at?
Yeah, it's all about the defense for me. Just want to feel better about that defense coming out of this. In all secondary, the front line, like all of it, just want to feel better about what Ash is doing, getting this going from here on out. So, and yeah, I guess let's make some picks. Let's go. We've looked at both sides of the ball. Let's kind of go around the horn here. I'm gonna just kind of go counterclockwise on my screen here. Jay, you want to kick it off? You want to make a pick for us?
Yeah, I think the pass rush is there for Texas. I think they get to the quarterback. I think they force multiple turnovers today. And I do think the run game gets going. I think we see Sam use his legs a little bit. And we'll see, there'll be a receiver that'll have a really, really nice game for Texas and stand out. Not sure who it'll be, but I'm going to say Texas 51, Texas Tech 31.
All right, Mike, what you got?
I don't like this Vegas line at all. So I would take the Tech points, honestly, until I see it. Until I see it against a quality team on the defensive side, I'm just going to assume from what I've seen over the last 5 years that this game is going to be played super tight until maybe the fourth quarter, where Texas pulls it out by a couple of scores. So for me, I mean, I'm looking at somewhere like a 51-38 type game. Until I see something completely different from this defense, I just can't not see this being a closer game than what people think. So,
All right, Jack, what do you think?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna go pretty close to what the over under was, and I think I'm gonna have Texas win. I think Tech's just got a lot of things they need to work on. I think some of those things will show more prominently in a Big 12 game. I think Alan Bowman's accuracy is going to be an issue in this game, and maybe it'll be something he kind of perfects later on in the season. But this early on against this kind of team, I think it'll be a huge issue for him. So I'm probably going to go Texas 42 and Tech 38. I think it'll still be really close, but Texas will come out in the end.
Yeah, I think, man, that Vegas line is weird. I'm part of me feels like the Texas offense can do enough to really cover that spread. But then the other side of it, like Mike said, like we haven't seen the defense quite do it yet, but it feels like they kind of should today.
yeah,
I don't.
exactly.
I'm thinking something along the lines like a 45-31. About a 2-touchdown game. But
You guys are leaving me out here on this island by myself.
well, no, but I think this is going to be. I think this is going to be one of those ones where, Texas may not cover the 17.5, but it feels like they did. Does that make any sense? Like where it's kind of like
I completely agree with that. Like,
It makes
where
sense.
like
I could see a scenario where it's like, sorry, Kerry. I could see
sorry, where like Texas has like they're just in kind of in cruise control going into the fourth quarter, but then it like maybe gets a little, a possession or two kind of game where you go, wait a second, how is this like this is now closer with 10 minutes left in the game than like we thought. I don't know.
That's kind of what my prediction is. Texas come out the scores, 4 or 5 touchdowns, and then you're looking at the fourth quarter and you're like, man, like you got a pretty comfortable lead, and then Tech comes out and roars back, and it's just, I don't know. I have to see the Texas defense perform at a high level, and anything under 30, I think is going to be a huge success. But I got to see it first for me. So
I say this a lot, and it's because I am buying more into what I've seen, what I'm hearing. Tom Herman has pointed to 2020 as being the year. I feel like he's got the right people in place. I heard him say, I've never heard him say on the show that he does with Craig earlier this week, he said that his coordinators are doing a great job, enough to where he can focus on the other things that he has to do to be a head coach. That's been the key for me with these hires from day one. And we knew that coming into this, he needed to be more of a CEO for this program to be successful. And I think if he truly feels like he can be a head coach now and not have to be poking into different rooms and figuring out what's going on over there, that's why I feel like this is going to be a game where Texas is going to put their foot on the gas and not let up. And for me, that's Kerry. Even if the defense struggles a little bit, I think Texas's offense does enough today to separate themselves. And that's sort of where my mind was in terms of them covering, because I think Tom Herman knows what his reputation is when it comes to being a favorite, an underdog. And he might not tell you that he reads and pays attention to that stuff, but I'm feeling that he does. He's wanting to make a point this season. That's why I'm putting it out there that I feel like they're going to cover this spread today and just blow Tech out of the water, because I feel like it's a statement that they want to make.
I would sleep good tonight if that happens.
But Jack, Jack, you picked Texas to win, but what sort of scenario happens today where you walk away as a Texas Tech football fan feeling like, okay, like we did what we need to do. We gave it our best shot and just didn't come.
Hey, you're kind of breaking up for me, so I guess I'll go ahead and answer. So I think kind of the opposite of the scenario where you guys kind of talked about, where it was, in the fourth quarter, Tech's kind of making like a comeback that doesn't really come back, but they tighten the gap. Kind of the opposite of that is, Tech stays with Texas pretty much the whole game. That's kind of the scenario where
Yeah.
I'd at least feel better that Tech stayed with the Longhorns throughout the whole game rather than falling considerably behind. At least, if still think Texas is going to pull out the win, but at least then I could say that the defense and the entire team was able to stay with a top 10 college football team at the moment. So
Yeah. I agree with that.
I'd walk away then as pretty okay.
Kerry, I can't hear you. Can you guys hear me?
Oh, I can't hear Kerry either. He's not muted on Zoom though, so that's weird.
Yeah.
And we also lost
We lost
Michael.
Mike. Can't hear you, Kerry.
Oh, there we go.
We got Mike back. Lost you, Kerry.
We lose Kerry too.
Like, this is audio.
Yeah, something happened with his audio.
Yeah, I can see him talking, but
No, we can't hear you, man.
he's like a mime right now.
Wait, I don't know. I started doing the
Yeah,
robot.
me too. I started doing.
why.
I think you started doing the robot because I started doing the robot.
Maybe just like Steven's,
Oh,
just like the
that's great.
thing.
Yeah, sorry. Little technical difficulties on my end too. It's great, right?
Sorry, I started that trend, I guess.
No, man. I think I did, man. I put the
And then
bad video on Bacon Eggs Wi-Fi.
And then I froze up. Kerry can't hear you still. And then I froze up asking you that question, Jack. Which I know I heard you heard enough of it to.
Yeah.
That's what I was trying to get you to say. Well, how you would come away happy, and I think that I think that's what Texas at this point is trying to sort of prevent, is keeping it. Obviously, Mike, like you said, we as Texas fans, we would sleep pretty well, knowing that that Texas handled their business in that sort of fashion. But it'll be interesting to see. Kerry, we got you still?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Hey,
Oh,
welcome
man.
Headset switch
back.
there. All right.
Oh, man. He doesn't have his
Back.
high-powered audio headphones now.
Man. Junk. All
We
right.
made it. We made it. We're back. We're
All right.
back.
All of us made it. They said it couldn't be done.
Yeah.
We pulled that off without having to leave the Zoom. How about that? Thanks to our
about that?
sponsors there.
Yeah.
That's what they're here
Absolutely.
for. Well,
Thank you,
guys,
Box
let's
Head Frames.
transition. Yeah, let's transition into recruiting a little bit here and kind of hit on the latest on that. Jack, you want to lead us off? You want to talk about the recruiting situation right now for Tech?
Yeah, Tech's made a few offers recently. They recently offered a Jared Kerr from Lexington High School. He received an offer from Tech. There's an All-American offensive lineman, Will Campbell. He's from Louisiana. He received an offer which would really help the offensive line if he ended up committing. And then they offered Tyrion Williams, who's a defensive back from the state of Georgia. So that also helped that secondary. So it looks like they're hitting positions still that would kind of help the areas that they need to get helped with these latest offers. Obviously, these aren't commits, but it looks like the recruiting side of Texas Tech is on the right track regarding their offers. So
That's interesting.
Jack,
There's some out-of-state names there. Has that been something Matt Wells has been trying to do more of, is kind of recruit outside of the state of Texas, or?
yeah, I think so. Well, you know, Texas has got so many big schools. They got Texas, they got Baylor, they got Houston, A&M, TCU. It's almost like, you know, we got to compete against these guys and try and talk Texas recruits to come to Lubbock, when these guys are like, well, I could go to Fort Worth, I could go to Austin, I could go to Houston. That's kind of like a losing scenario. So I think his mindset is let's get some out-of-state guys that, you know, there's less competition with the other Big 12 schools in these other states. So, you know, let's just try and get those guys up to Lubbock.
Yeah, and
Jack, are you trying to say that Lubbock is not a destination? Like
Football. Basketball is
Oh,
a different story.
There you go.
Here we go. All right, it's over. No, hey Jack, I had a quick question for you, man. Just as a Red Raider fan and insider, man. Like, what needs to happen on the defensive side of the ball to get some of these, like, I mean, I know it's probably not a 5-star destination, but to kind of turn it around on that side of the ball, like what? Because, Texas Tech always had the high-powered offense. I think the thing that's kind of held them back is not quite on the defensive side, always trying to win shootouts. So what's kind of what's the philosophy in Lubbock? Like, what do fans think about the defensive side of the ball when it comes to recruiting?
I think it's just trying to find the potential there to kind of have kind of like a breakout guy. I mentioned Douglas Coleman earlier. He was kind of, just sprung up. They need guys that are have a lot of like that mindset of always being around the ball, whether it's on the air or it's on the ground, just kind of running all over the field, using up all their stamina for those, for that game time hour, so they just need guys like that, and guys that are like not 5 stars, but 3 stars, even 2 stars that are higher than their ranking, really. So that's pretty much what they need.
Yeah,
well, and go ahead, Mike.
I was gonna say, if you look at Texas, I mean, probably outside of Ellinger, the 2 best players on Texas were like a mid 3-star, as you can hear my kids screaming in the background, right on cue. I mean, the Sam Cosme is a 3-star, and so is Joseph Osai. So I mean, a high 3-star, kind of that lower 4-star. So I mean, yeah, if Texas Tech could find a guy or 2 like that, and my son's obviously upset that we can't get these 5 stars.
Yeah.
That's how I feel every time we talk about the offensive line recruiting.
Somebody else committed to Alabama and not Texas. That's
basically.
I mean, but it's like, Jack, it's almost like you have to have a coach in Lubbock and a defensive coordinator that is putting these guys into positions to be successful too, and get the most out of them, because that's what like a Gary Patterson at TCU is known for doing, is taking those athletes and molding them into football players, those positionless guys. You're not coming here to play a position. You're coming here to play football. You're going to get you on here, and this is what's going to happen. Excuse me. So to go to Lubbock and to have somebody there that can develop that sort of talent for those guys that you were describing, Jack, I think is super important. And if Keith Patterson can live up to his reputation and force turnovers, and guys see there, oh man, Texas Tech they're intercepting a lot of passes. They're getting to the quarterback and getting sacks. If you start to see those sort of things, Kerry, just like we discussed in terms of recruiting, when you see those big things happening on campus, I feel like that's the sort of thing that Tech would need to really start drawing in those guys.
Yeah. It's perception is a pretty powerful thing, like, and recruits definitely buy into that and play into that. And I don't think I don't see there being a situation for quite a while where an offensive player is offered by Texas Tech and they go like, oh, well, I'm not going to go there because it's not an exciting offense, or they're not going to score points or anything like that. Like I think part of the issue is that there's just that kind of perception that hangs over, the program from a defensive standpoint. Like, oh, well, that's just an air raid school. They don't play defense there. If you go play defense there, you're not going to go to the league, even though they've had guys that have been good defensive players that have been successful. And yeah, I think the TCU comparison is a really good one in terms of like to kind of start shifting that narrative a bit for Tech. It's got to be come here, get developed. We're going to get raw athletes that may not fit into this nice box somewhere positionally, and we're going to develop you and we're going to put you in the league. And I think if Tech can get that going, then everything else kind of takes care of itself. But to me, it's just that perception. Right and wrong.
I will say, like, Matt Wells has done pretty good on the transfer market outside of high school recruiting. He's done well on the transfer market for the defense, getting Eric Monroe from LSU and some of those guys. So maybe that's the philosophy as well, as if we can't get the guys out of high school, the high-ranking guys out of high school defensive, maybe we could get them in the transfer market.
Yeah, JUCOs and also grad transfers. I think that's what we talked about it, I think, on a few shows before. Kansas State, I mean, they don't recruit high-level defensive, players, but they're always one of the tough-nosed, hard-nosed defenses. You look at like the Iowas, they're not in the top 25 in recruiting services ever, but they get these guys like Kerry was talking about, and they develop them. I think that's what you kind of saw under Leach, under some of those really good teams, is that that's underrated defensive teams on those on that side of the ball. So I just think that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I think that perception thing plays negatively for Texas as well with offensive line recruiting.
Here we go.
But that's what you hear. Texas is going after these whether it was the Brockermeyer brothers or like these big offensive line recruits with the message of like, hey, we're turning this thing around. Tom Herman's turning this program into a contender. Come join, come be, part of this transition and getting back into the national conversation, hopefully. Where the other side of things, the perception is, well, Texas hasn't had an offensive lineman, or they've only had one offensive lineman drafted in X amount of years, and all these things. You see these high star recruits go to Texas and wash out, and they don't, they're not as successful. And that's a hard perception for Texas to shake right now. And that's why, like, it's the only way to fix that is to literally fix it, start putting more players in the league, winning a lot more, win more football games.
Yeah. Winning helps.
So real quick, if I could jump in on that.
Yeah.
It's really sad that, I was watching the Cincinnati game the other day. Trey Hopkins is starting at center. And we get all these undrafted, Malcolm Roach, undrafted, starting, like, Will Jordan Humphrey, undrafted, like he's on the Saints. Like, Adrian Phillips wasn't really even talked about here. He was a Pro Bowl safety a few years ago in the NFL. Like, Malcolm Brown, like, played on one of the worst offensive lines we've had here at Texas. And now look at him for opening.
Tyrone Swoops is still in the league, right? He's still with the Seahawks.
Jeff Swaim, like, all these guys, they're just not getting developed while they're at Texas. And I was having a conversation with my dad about this, and I'm like, how can these guys not be factors at Texas, but then go to the league and play in the – who would have thought Malcolm Brown would still be in the NFL right now?
Right.
After his career at Texas. Like, it's just baffling to me. How does Malcolm Roach not – he just wasn't put in a position to succeed last year, because look at him. He's starting for the Saints. Like, I mean –
to making plays. He jumps off the screen when you see him. Like, he's –
I mean, to me, and go back to talk about the offensive line, man, like, we just have missed on so many occasions over the last 10 years that finally, with Cosme and Kerstetter, you're going to get a couple of guys, especially Cosme. I think he can be the guy that turns the tide as far as how players look at this. Because, you look at it and it's like, well, I'm an offensive lineman like the Brockermeyers. I mean, it's like, is Texas going to develop me and put me into the league when they're not developing some of these other guys and they end up making their way on the teams and being starters on NFL teams? Like, it's just kind of crazy to me.
Well, and that also speaks a lot to just the quality of the coaching that we've been seeing over the last decade, the lack of development, the lack of attention to detail to when you have these guys. Because there was a reason that Texas recruiting was stayed decent even through the rough times. It's because they were still getting quality athletes and quality football players on the field. We would see them, and they weren't developed. We could see flashes like guys that would come in as freshmen and flash, and then all of a sudden they just sort of Carrington Bindum for me. I don't know why he stands out. Like I love that guy, but when it was like came in, anyways, it's just one of those things where you see, and it's the development just is not where you want it to be, and that's what's going to make the biggest difference. And Cosme will get into he'll be a first rounder. Kirkstetter will get drafted. I mean, we're talking guys that have made a difference on campus, and hopefully some of these people that they're bringing on now will be able to fill that mold. And Herb Hand has done a pretty good job as the offensive line coach since he's been on the 40 acres. So you guys are on point. It's just going to take Mike, like you said with the defense earlier, with the offensive line, it's like, show me first. Show me you're going to develop guys. Show me you're going to get to the league. And then we're going to come back to Texas. And it'll happen quickly, I feel, especially if they're winning also. Winning and putting guys into the league cures everything else.
Yeah, for the offensive line recruiting this year, Texas needed to have what was expected this year to happen last year. And you would see the Brockermeyers and maybe a Donovan Jackson and Bryce Foster, like these guys, like not just, they're Ohio State develops players. Alabama's developing offensive linemen at a rapid rate. Like these guys LSU does. So they're just going to these places where they know they're going to get developed properly. And it's just almost too little too late with what we got going on with Cosme and Kerstetter for this year's recruiting class, where I think next year you can make a little more headway with some of these guys, but just a disappointing overall offensive line recruiting aspect. But if you guys want to jump into, obviously we did have a commitment from Max Merrill, offensive tackle from Shrake Jesuit. So, I mean, as far as where he was on the list of, targets, he just got offered, 4 days ago and already committed. So,
right.
I mean, you missed out on a bunch of guys, and I think this is just kind of where you're at now. If they can develop him, then who cares what his star ranking or whatever it is, whatever it is. He plays with a nasty streak. To me, it's kind of like, I think I was telling Jay, kind of a Reese Moore type, where it's like, hey, you got this guy, he could probably start maybe for a couple of years at a mid-tier, type school. He's got 40 offers, a ton of them from kind of like the, the mid-tier programs, but it's like, kind of a disappointing recruiting season for the offensive line, I think. But hey, if you can turn him into a solid player, then kudos to the coaching staff, and I think that's what they're going to have to do, because I don't see any of these war daddies on the offensive line coming this year.
Yeah, when you see those guys come in, and the thing that I mentioned is hopefully they see a guy that had as many offers as he did for a reason, that enough coaches saw enough in him to see, if we can get this guy on campus, maybe we can mold him. And that's usually what you see out of these 2- and 3-star linemen that get offered late by bigger schools. And I feel like that if they missed on other big targets, this guy is obviously and they knew, Texas probably knows going in, when you look at that offer list, like, if we offer this guy, he's coming to Texas.
Right. Yeah.
So they went and got their guy, and we'll see what happens. You just have to hope that the development is there. Like you said, 3-star, 1-star, no star, Death Star, whatever. You gotta develop them, and hopefully this is one of those guys that gets on campus, eats, sleeps, breathes football, all those cliches, real lunch pail guy, and gets it done.
Yep, real gym rat, real workout warrior,
student of the game. Yeah,
student of the game. First in, last out.
Yeah.
All those adjectives that we could go on and on and on about.
Locker room leader.
Yeah. Yep. kind of
Captain
guy
of
you'd be
his
okay
team.
your daughter dating.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's exactly who you want at left tackle in here in 3 years.
Exactly. A ace in the classroom.
Yeah. For sure.
Does
Model
all the little
citizen.
things.
Yeah.
He's willing to make sacrifices, all that good stuff. So
Willing to leave his family to become developed by Kurt Serpan.
exactly,
Yeah.
yeah. So we'll go ahead. We'll cut that there before we start getting into all those fun adjectives, deceptive speed, and all those things. So
Yeah. Good at free throws.
yeah, exactly. Fundamentals. All right.
Let's go to these next games,
Yeah,
man.
let's go. Let's transition. Let's get into the national scene here. Let's make some picks. Let's start with one of two matchups between two top 25 teams this week. Number 24 Louisville at number 21 Pittsburgh. Pitt is a 2.5 point favorite. Let's go. Jack, what do you think?
I'm going to go with Louisville, even though I think it's going to be close. Just judging by it, I mean, ESPN says a 3-0 start is pretty rare for Pitt, so I'm going to keep with that trend and say they don't go 3-0. So I'm going to go with Louisville.
Mike, what do you think?
I guess I got to double down on my terrible take last week. De'Aaron King went all crazy on them. They have too much talent offensively, man. We already talked about it. Like, I mean, I don't even know how Pitt's favored, to be honest with you. Like, if you look at the talent on both teams, it's kind of night and day, but I don't know. So, I mean, I got Louisville rolling by a couple of touchdowns, honestly.
Yeah, it's wrong team favored for me too. It's Louisville. Pitt's not. I made the joke about Manny Diaz last week in Miami and all that stuff, and Miami looked good against Louisville. Pitt is not Miami. I think Louisville takes care of business here today. Wrong team favored.
Unless they wear those mustard color uniforms, I don't think they have a chance.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
Kerry,
going
what?
Louisville.
Yeah.
They're wrong team favored. So let's get the early game today. Let's in the Big 12. We've got Kansas State at number 3 Oklahoma. Sooners are favored by 27.5. What do you guys think? Jack, we'll start with you again.
It's going to be Oklahoma by a landslide. Spencer Rattler is just, again, Oklahoma just seems, Lincoln Riley just seems to get whatever he wants. So I think Oklahoma by a landslide. So.
All right, Mike, what do you think?
Yeah, beat down. I mean, I would. Yeah, actually, I need to make a parlay after this.
Jay, what do you got?
I'm actually gonna go against you guys. I feel like this is gonna. I've seen it. I've seen this line at 28 now. I don't know. For some reason I just think Kansas State finds a way to keep this one within 4 scores. I think Oklahoma wins, and it feels like an easy win, but K-State will stick around somehow and keep it within 4 scores.
Within 4 scores 7 years ago, maybe. I don't know about this year.
Four scoring 7 years ago. Yeah, but
Well done, Mike.
hey.
That was a good one. Perfect. No, I think I'm gonna agree with Jay here. I think Oklahoma wins decisively, but it's just the points kind of hold me up on that. I think Kansas State does enough defensively to keep that. I mean, that's kind of what they do, right? Like they do enough to keep teams from just like absolutely stomping them. So I think K-State, is going to get crushed, but I don't see Oklahoma. I'm going to pick them to not cover the 27.5. So let's go to the SEC for the next top 25 matchup between two ranked teams. 23, Kentucky at number 8, Auburn. Auburn favored by 7.5. Jack, what do you think?
I'm going to go with Auburn. I just, Auburn, Alabama, they kind of run the show in the SEC, along with LSU and Florida, and I could go on and on and on. But, I think Auburn's got this one. So,
Mike, what do you think?
I like Auburn in this one. I don't think you could sleep on Kentucky, though, man. They've been, doing some impressive things over the last couple of years. I think, obviously, losing the quarterback hurts in the NFL now. So, we'll see what they can bring, but obviously still bringing back a lot of guys. So ranked 23rd. I mean, I know that's, the current rankings without, the other teams involved right now, but yeah, I just see this as an Auburn victory. So.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think Auburn wins, but I don't think it's by more than 7.5. I think Kentucky keeps it close enough, even on the road here. And one of the reasons is because of what you said, Mike. They bring back so many guys. They've played this SEC schedule, and all bets are off right now in terms of home field advantages. So for me, I think Auburn still finds a way to win this game, but I'm at 7.5. I don't necessarily like the hook there. I'm gonna take Kentucky to cover that.
Yeah, this is a tricky one. I think I'm going to take Auburn in the points here, just on the fact that Auburn does return a good bit on the offensive side. This is the first game for both teams. I think Auburn's going to find their rhythm a little bit quicker than Kentucky can, and I think I'm kind of right there with Jay, though. I don't like the hook on that, but I do think Auburn covers it.
Would I be surprised if Auburn came out and blew the doors off of it?
Yeah.
No, I would not be surprised at all. I really wouldn't, Jack, to sort of what you were saying earlier. I think that if Auburn comes out and wins by 3 scores, yeah, okay. But I just think that Kentucky will find a way in that one. Kerry, what's the next game we got on this?
We
slate?
got heading back to the Big 12. We've got West Virginia at number 15, Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State a 6.5-point favorite here. Jack, what do you think?
This is one that's tough for me. The other ones are kind of, this one or this one, but like, I might go with West Virginia here for the upset. I'm not convinced with this Oklahoma State team just yet. And West Virginia just looks like a better team right now. So I'm going to go with West Virginia.
All right, Mike, what do you say?
Yeah, I got, 3-team parlay right here. Oklahoma State in a landslide. They're too talented. I mean, I don't care if Spencer Sanders doesn't start. If I started, I'll hand the ball off 50 times. I don't know what they were doing last game, to be honest.
No clue.
I went back and rewatched the game because I was trying to figure out, what the hell was going on, to be honest with you. I was like, why? At one point in 2 straight possessions, they didn't hand the ball to Hubbard one time. And I'm like, what is going on right now? I think defensively they were a little more impressive than I thought they were going to be. So that's a little nerve-wracking because if they didn't get the offense on board, then they can be pretty scary. I think Sanders is still questionable as of what we know so far. So,
Yeah.
But even if he doesn't play, you got to think Chuba Hubbard's just good, and Tylan Wallace are just good enough to, West Virginia, they looked great in that first game, but I just think talent-wise, there's a big disparity. So give me the, 6.5 or whatever it is. Oklahoma State rolls.
All right, Jay, what do you think?
I'm in line with that. Yeah, you guys know how high I am on Oklahoma State this season, and I think, like you said, it doesn't really make a difference who's handing the ball off today because they're not going to get away from that. They don't really have an option but to go back to that running game. It doesn't matter who's at quarterback. For Oklahoma State to be successful, they need to run the ball, and I think they will today and win and cover 6.5.
Well, I'm on board with Jack here. This is my upset pick this week. And this may just all be recency bias, but I did not like how Oklahoma State looked against Tulsa, even with the Spencer Sanders, injury issue, and we'll see how healthy he is. Something just looks off with them. And maybe that's just first week.
Have anything to do with it?
I don't know. I kind of had that feeling about them going into the season.
Weird. Yeah.
Something seems off, and I don't know if it was just first week wrinkles and the injury stuff that kind of cramped their game plan. I don't know. I just didn't like the way that they looked. On the flip side of that, West Virginia looked really good in their opening game on a weekend where the Big 12 as a conference looked awful. Where Kansas State lost, Iowa State lost. It was a terrible day for the Big 12 minus West Virginia, Texas, and OU. So those are the two things that stick with me. I think West Virginia is I don't know if Neil Brown's kind of turning that thing around a little bit in a way, but like it seems like, especially with the crowd going to be out of this really at Oklahoma State, not the usual home field advantage they have there. I think West Virginia can do this. And yeah, I'm going to pick them for the upset. And then our last game, Vanderbilt at number 10, Texas A&M, who is favored by 30.5. Man, all right.
14 parlay for me. Vanderbilt, give me the points.
All right,
Yeah,
Mike, we got you there. Jay, we'll go reverse order here. I'll
go ahead, Kerry.
Mike's got his pick in. Yeah, I think A&M is going to win this game, but 30.5. I don't know. I think Vandy covers the points, and we hear about how
they're too smart to get beat by 30, right?
well.
You would think so.
There's that, and then we'll just hear about how A&M didn't cover the 30.5 because they were playing an SEC team. So yeah. I'm taking Vandy to at least cover.
Jack, what do you think's going to happen in this one? 30.5 points for A&M to cover seems big, but what do you think?
Well, I've been kind of conservative with these picks, so I'm gonna throw a wild one out there and say A&M not only covers it but blows it out of proportion. So
Right.
like a 50 point like win or something like that.
No, man, Jack, I'm with you, to be honest. I think Vanderbilt is bad, like bad. And I honestly think that Kellen Mond, I don't know.
They're going to run the annexation of Puerto Rico, though.
Hey, man, listen, I think A&M, I think this is a beatdown of, like Jack said, of epic proportions. I think A&M finds a way to just really blow the doors off of Vanderbilt, but I just think that Vanderbilt is that bad. I don't think this is necessarily an indicator of how good Texas A&M is, as how bad Vanderbilt is. So anyway, I think A&M actually covers that. That is a big number, but I'm not gonna. I think they do it.
Vanderbilt has a lot of guys that are first ones to class, last ones to leave. So
Oh yeah. Definitely a lot of coaches on the field there for Vanderbilt.
Yeah, for sure.
Bright futures ahead, they're going to be successful in anything they
something
do.
out of the sports, yes. They're a lot less curriculum.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Just lots of glue guys.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's all good.
I can't
It's
even
all
watch
good.
that game seriously after this conversation.
Well, you can just watch it on mute because we already provided the analysis, the announcers will be saying, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, guys, that's kind of it for our college football part of this and our preview. Mike, Jack, y'all are more than welcome to stick around. We're going to hit on just a few quick things with the Astros and the Stars and NFL stuff real quick. So y'all are more than welcome to hang out. We're just going to kind of roll on through here. So
I think I'll head out. So thank you guys for having me.
Man, it's been a pleasure.
Yeah, man.
Enjoy the game today, and we'll have you back on here again soon.
Thanks,
All right,
Jack.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Jack. Well, let's see. Let's get into the Astros here. Jay, last night the Astros secured a playoff berth via the Dodgers beating the Angels. They are 29-29 as of today. 2 games left. They're going to finish 30-30, right? Like, it's destined this team finishes 500.
Yeah, it's gonna. I mean, and the thing, I'm just so glad that they have it wrapped up, that they can figure out. Although it doesn't really matter who's pitched lately because they haven't hit the ball. So you can line up your pitching matchups all you want. If you're not putting runs across the plate, it doesn't make any difference. But I don't know, man. Like, it's just it feels. We've been saying this: just get into the playoffs and then do whatever. This team has the talent to go on a mad run. They're in, Mike, and that's sort of, for me, that's all that really makes a difference in this crazy playoff time scenario, whatever you want to call it. This we're in unprecedented waters here with 8 playoff teams in each league. So, what's sort of been as the baseball season the regular season comes to a close this weekend, what's sort of been your take on on what you've seen with the Astros and just with the league in general.
Yeah, so I don't know how we managed to get through this season. I thought this thing was going to be a train wreck, but somehow we did it, and somehow we got the Marlins into the playoffs too. So
Yeah.
I think just with this year, like you were saying, we've been saying this a lot on the show, and it's just a weird year. So you just got to get in. I mean, we're playing games with 7 innings on some of these doubleheaders. Like, nothing about this year is normal. You look at the Astros hitting, nothing about that is normal. And so I think everyone has a shot this year. I think baseball in general, every year, everybody has a chance. Like, it's not like NBA where the 6 through 8 seeds don't really have a chance after the second round, even if they were to upset in the first round. Or, you see this a lot in football. Like, usually the more dominant teams, end up winning. Like the Titans is like, it's a good story. But I think in baseball, you see this a lot. You see the Royals, you see the Giants, you see, a lot of different things like the Nationals. You know what I mean? Like, you just see teams that the Nationals weren't even in this type of scenario. They wouldn't even made the playoffs, and they ended up winning the World Series last year. So, with the Astros, I think once you get in, man, all it takes is to get hot, and you got too many quality bats to not put some runs across the board. I think that's going to play a huge factor is, how the hitting is going to come out in the postseason. And then if you can just find enough pitching and enough bullpen, you can make something happen. It's going to take a lot from that pitching staff, especially that relief, area. So
Kerry, we've seen the bats come alive a little bit over the past couple of nights, but then you get to an end game situation, and whether it's Presley that just something's been a little bit off with him, it doesn't really matter who they've been bringing in. The results haven't been there, especially in close games. So
no, and especially on the road. And for me, that's going to be the big issue going into the postseason, is that they're not in the friendly confines of Minute Maid Park where they've played pretty well. And as of right now, the Astros would be heading to Tampa to play the number 1 seed in the American League. But interestingly, though, like, this is a team that the Astros have matched up well against over the years. And so it's a best of 3 series. Can they go and can they get 2 wins out of 3 in Tampa? Something that I think the Astros on the whole for the season have 9 wins on the road. Something like that. I think they're 9-20 on the road this season, maybe 9-21, something like that. It's terrible. So what I was wanting to see here this last stretch bit of the season was them trying to get a little bit of momentum. It seemed like that first game against the Rangers in that series where they lit the scoreboard up, maybe they were starting to come around a little bit, but then it's something like last night where it's just, another sputtering kind of game from them. So it's by the time we record next week, we'll probably be already through the first round of the playoffs. So, I'll go ahead and kind of throw a pick in here. As it stands, I'm not picking the Astros to get 2 out of 3 in Tampa. I think Tampa's really, really solid, good pitching, good hitting. I think Tampa Bay wins that series.
I kind of disagree. I think the Astros win that series. I think Blake Snell, your best pitcher, left-handed. You got a lot of right-handed bats for Houston, and I think talent-wise, if you just look at it, Houston should be the better team in a short series. But we'll see. What do you think, Jay?
That's the thing, though, is like it's tough to know which team's going to show up here. And I agree with you, Mike, that I honestly, when Kerry and I talked about this last night, and he was like, it looks like it's going to be the Rays, and I was like, good. Like, that to me, that's the team in the first round. If I'm the Astros, nobody wants to face the Astros in the first round of the playoffs. Yeah. We've talked about that. No, you don't want to face that. It's the 8 seed as the 4 seed as whatever seed. Nobody wants to play that roster in the first round of the playoffs. I like the matchup against Tampa Bay. It's just, man, is it going to be a close game and come down to a bullpen needing to shut the door? Because we've seen throughout the entire season that's not going to be the case. And if the bats can come alive, and like you said, Snell being their best arm, and I don't know, it lines up to me for this to be one of those things where I've just been saying for the Astros to get in and then they can make a run. I think they do beat Tampa in a best of 3 series. I just think they find a way. They're too good not to. There's too much talent. It just seems to me like I just don't see how it could happen. Obviously, it could happen, but for me, I'm gonna pick. If that's is Tampa locked into the 1 seed?
No, I don't think it's official, but they're in pretty good shape for it with a couple games left. I think Minnesota's lurking around, and then Oakland, obviously, and so
Yeah,
I think that's kind of the.
Of those 3 teams, give me Tampa all day.
Yeah.
And twice on Sunday, and I think that Houston can handle that if that's the way that it ends. So Oakland, I don't want to see Oakland, and I don't want to see Minnesota at all in the first round.
No, and I think the fact the Astros have had success in the postseason at Tampa is going to just help too. There's an experience factor there where, I know Tampa took the Astros to the brink in the postseason last year, took that thing 5, and made that series interesting. But no Justin Verlander, no Garrett Cole. I think they could, but I do agree with you guys in that I think this is the best matchup for the Astros, and I think they could do this. Their road woes are concerning to me. I just don't.
And what are we going to see from Dusty Baker too in the playoffs?
That's another thing. I
know he's got a ton of experience, and I think he did a pretty good job with everything you look at with having all these rookies in the bullpen, having Verlander go down super early, losing Garrett Cole. I think they would be 500. No, but I think there's so much ceiling to this team still. I don't think the Twins is a good matchup at all with their bats, and then Oakland. Man, what can you say about just how do they do it? It's incredible. One of these days, Oakland's going to bust through, and it's going to be glorious. And I'll put on Moneyball afterwards to celebrate.
Well, and it's going to.
In a wide open year, in a wide open season like this, this could be a year where you see an Oakland sort of bust through, where anybody could do it, or it could be somebody like you said, the freaking Marlins got in when we saw before they were 8-1 or whatever before they went into their COVID hibernation for a month, and then they came out of it and did enough to make the playoffs. So good on them. But this is anybody's ball game, man. I know that's a cliche thing to say, but literally with everything the way that it's going and the way that it's set up, this is from top to bottom, having 16 teams in. Throw a dart at the wall, man. You could pick out of a large number of teams, and if you told me they won the World Series this year, I'd be like, yeah, totally. I wouldn't second guess it at all.
What's even crazier,
especially with the neutral site games.
Yeah, what's even crazier is there should still be another 100 games in this season.
Right?
Isn't that crazy to you guys?
Yeah, it is.
It feels like this has been the longest baseball year ever, and yet we played 100 less games.
It is because it just feels so bizarre because these issues that, specific to the Astros that they've been having, these are things that you typically can see over the course of a 162 game schedule work themselves out. I still feel like there's so much that we don't really know about this Astros team. Is this really who they are? Or is this just a baseball season playing out in an abbreviated form where we will really never know if this is a team that could get it together and turn it on or not? And it's it's weird.
It's a great point.
And I think you guys know how big of a fan of Rob Manfred I am. I would love nothing more than an Astros Marlins World Series just so he gets all the ratings that he ever wanted and gets his dream scenario of the Astros beating the Marlins in the World Series. So love Robbie M. Be
I
great.
want to know if there were odds on the Marlins being the first, obviously the city of Miami being paradise for me, them being the first ones to contract a big COVID thing. I was like, man, that should have been 1-to-1.
Yeah, no kidding. No, and it might have been in the right circles depending on who you asked.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's see what happens. Kerry, what else we got? What else we got today?
We've got the Dallas Stars down 3-1. Game 5 tonight. Back-to-back games. Great scheduling in NHL. Scheduling back-to-back games in a championship series. I understand they're trying to dodge the NFL on a Sunday, but come on. the Stars are down 3-1. I think Tampa lifts the cup tonight. I think they close the series out, and everybody gets out of that bubble that they've been in since July in Edmonton. And the only thing I can say about it is that it's, the officiating in the series both ways has been just an absolute farce. It's been the call last night in overtime to give Tampa a power play, which turned into the winning goal, was just incredibly bizarre. Terrible call, but but honestly though, it's gone both ways. And and I've seen a little bit of this online from Tampa fans that even they're yelling about the officiating being so inconsistent and poor. You hate to see it, because Tampa's a really good team. They're maybe the best team in the NHL, and they have been over the last few years. And to have the officiating kind of mar what they've done in this postseason is too bad. You want, even if it's not your team winning a championship, you don't want it to feel like it's been tainted somehow by factors that everybody else is going to, that everybody's going to talk about, kind of like, oh, it was all about the refs. Tampa's a really good team. They deserve to be where they're at. So it's just shitty to see it go the way that it has.
Well, and Mike, we talk about when you get into the playoffs, and this is something that Kerry touched on last night in conversation, was like, you sort of expect refs to let the players make the decisions of the series, right? Like you don't want a championship, a game in a championship series to be decided by a referee's whistle. You don't want a regular season game to be, but especially when it comes to the playoffs, and they tend to swallow their whistles a little bit more in those type of situations. And it looked to me last night that with that last penalty, it looked like Ben was penalized just for being stronger than that guy. As sort of, the casual hockey fan that I am, I could sort of see through that call. But Mike, it's just one of those things where you don't ever want to see a game decided by a whistle.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, what worse thing could happen in sports, honestly, than to have it decided by a questionable call? We've seen it so many times in so many sports. And then we've seen sometimes where they do swallow the whistle, and, which maybe a flag should have been thrown, or, what comes to mind is the Saints.
Yeah.
Back-to-back years
Right.
where either a flag was thrown or not thrown. And so, yeah, I mean, you hate to see it. It's just really tough, I think, on officiating this year, just due to there's been a lot of rule changes in a lot of sports for all that stuff to kind of be implemented in this, and to have, these officials trying to wrap their head around everything, and then also while wearing masks. Like, it's just aesthetically, it's weird to watch the guy, like, take his mask off in the NFL, stick it in his pocket, like, get adjusted to make the call, and then run back and, like, throw his mask back on. Like, it's just, I don't know. Like, this is probably going to be, we say it all the time, officiating stuff, but I think this year in general, like, this is one of the hardest years to officiate all sports right now. So, but especially in a championship, you just hate to see that type of stuff happen. So,
Yeah, for sure. And, I'll go ahead and congratulate the Tampa Bay Lightning on their Stanley Cup win. I hope next week I have to revise that. Maybe there's, it's on tape. I mean, saying, oh, Tampa's going to win this thing up 3-1. We'll see what happens. But I think they will. They're a good team. They deserve to be in the position where they're at.
I like it.
So no, they're solid. There's no, that's no, it's no fault of Tampa. Yeah, it's just, that's 2 games in this series that have been decided by refs making judgment calls, and it should never be a judgment call in the postseason. It should be something so clear that judgment doesn't have to play a part, right? It's so, but we'll see how it goes. So what else we got this weekend? Let's hit on a couple NFL things real quick, couple NFL picks. We got Texans at the Pittsburgh Steelers. Steelers are favored by 4. Mike, what do you think about this?
I don't want to break y'all's hearts, man.
I don't think you will. Not mine, at least. I think I'm in agreement with you.
Man, I don't know, man. Like, who drew up the Texans schedule? Like, that guy must hate Houston.
It's Rob Manfred.
Yeah, Rob Manfred threw it in for real. Like seriously, like this is crazy. I don't see enough on the Texans defensively, and then losing DeAndre Hopkins, man, like, geez, like you can just see it from, all the way to Arizona, how big that was. And if my boy Fuller V could ever stay healthy, maybe he could realize his potential. But it just
Fuller.
doesn't. Yeah, it just feels
I love
like
that.
it's Deshaun Watson and everyone else like on that team. You know what I mean? Like, there's just not enough help there for him, I don't think. And the defense is kind of aging in some aspects of it. And, I think Pittsburgh is on the up and up, and I think Roethlisberger's looked pretty good. So, yeah, I like Pittsburgh this week. But it wouldn't shock me if Watson took the game over because he has that capability.
Yeah, I mean, that's sort of what we rely on as Texans fans is sort of Deshaun Watson to be Superman, and he is quite often. You don't pay a guy $40 million a year because he sucks. He's the dude. He's the guy that you couldn't let walk out of your locker room, and he is capable of getting his team to places that many quarterbacks could not take them to, and including, I think, a victory today. On Sunday. I think that they find a way to get it done because he knows they can't go 0-3. And I don't know, man. I just think this is the game where they put it together. And we talked about you lose to to Kansas City. Okay, understandable. You lose to Baltimore. I still am fully – I get it. That's the cream of the crop. Pittsburgh does look like they could be one of those teams in the AFC this year. Roethlisberger is – out with a point to prove this year, and it could very well go Pittsburgh's way, but I just think Deshaun Watson finds a way, puts on his cape, and takes the Texans to a win this week. Kerry, what do you got?
Man, I go back and forth on this one. I feel like this is a kind of a matchup nightmare in a way for the Texans. With the Steelers have been showing some big downfield explosive play capability with Claypool and Juju and these guys that can just go fly down the field and go get the ball, where the Texans secondary hasn't been that great. And so I just feel like it's kind of a bad matchup there. I think that Steeler defense, they've got another one of those coaches on the field, real, lunch pail, hard hat kind of guy, and TJ Watt there on the edge that's going to, kind of keep that pressure on Deshaun Watson. And I think they kind of bottle him up. That said, the NFL, so in a way I want to think that, the Steelers are going to win this game, but the NFL is so weird that right when you think you've got teams figured out and you think that there's a trend there, it flips around. So this is one of those ones where, oh, hey, look, the Texans are 0-2. They lost to Kansas City. They lost to Baltimore. This is how are they going to get out of this stretch run of, this schedule difficulty here early? It wouldn't surprise me if the Texans go into Pittsburgh and win this game because of Deshaun Watson and the defense maybe making some big plays and getting to, Roethlisberger a little bit. So I don't know. I'm kind of on the fence here. I almost want to go Texans to cover the 4. I think it's going to be a close game, and turnover here or there, or missed, field goal or something like that determines the game. I think it's gonna be a close one. I think it's gonna be a fun game to watch.
I hope, because I'm tired of watching them having to play from behind, and it'll be interesting. Everybody that listens to this show with any sort of regularity knows how we feel about Bill O'Brien as a coach, as a game manager, as a general manager. He probably owns 17% of the team at this point too. He has that much power in the organization. But I just feel like it's Watson's day. So we'll see what goes on Sunday. Kerry, the other one we wanted to talk about was we had Dallas going to Seattle. Seattle was favored, last I saw, by 5.5.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. Like, for me, it's just go ahead, Kerry.
No. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just gonna. For me, Dallas's offense right now, I think I just think Dallas goes there. I just have a feeling Dallas is going to really start to turn it on and go to Seattle and get this win. I know that Seattle's a tough place to play. I know. I'm guessing that all of the air quality is improving enough on the West Coast to where it's not a concern. And I don't know, man. I'm thinking Dallas goes in there. I think it is a shootout because Russell Wilson is going to be Russell Wilson. This is sort of like a 34-31 kind of game that I think Dallas. Either way, it's a 34-31 kind of game to me. So take that for what you will with the 5.5 point line. But I think Dallas actually comes out ahead on this one.
Yeah, Mike, what do you think?
I just question Dallas. They just lost their identity. The drafting of CeeDee Lamb, while if you're playing a video game or playing like fantasy, like football, like in a fantasy world, you draft CeeDee Lamb. But you were built on a hard-nosed run game. And I just don't think they know what they want to be. Like now you apparently have these receiver weapons. And I just think they're lost as far as like what they want to be. Do they want Dak Prescott to be the $40 million guy and lead the team? Or do you want to build it around Ezekiel Elliott? I don't think you can't build this thing around both guys. It just doesn't make a lot of sense to me what's going on there. Like, and you had all these issues in the secondary and you didn't draft. Like, I know they drafted a kid in the second round, but that first pick, I think, says a lot about how that organization is kind of run with Jerry Jones still around. And I think it's just more of a, what can I do? You see the Aldon Smith, like all these guys every year, they sign like the big names and they try to draft like the popular guy. They're thinking about taking Manziel until he got talked out of it. You know what I mean? Like, it just doesn't seem like they don't have an identity until Stephen Jones really starts to put his foot down on things. And so I think they're just really interesting. I think they're super talented, but I mean, honestly, like, I feel like I could go in there and coach that team better than Jason Garrett and the new guy, McCarthy. It just seems like more of the same stuff. It just doesn't make any sense to me. And then I just think on the other side, I think Russell Wilson is going to get another title this year. The receiver core is great. You're throwing Greg Olsen with Disley at tight end. You've got a better offensive line performance. Defensively, yeah, there's probably going to be some struggles there with no Clowney, but you have Jamal Adams in the secondary, So I think Seattle takes this one. But it's just interesting to see how this Cowboys season unfolds. Like, I thought they would be at 11, maybe 12 win ceiling, but now that I'm looking at it, I'm like, they don't even know who they are right now. So,
yeah, this one's interesting. After what New England was able to do at Seattle last week, I think the Cowboys have a blueprint for how to attack that defense and how to score a lot of points. I think if the Patriots are able to move the ball the way that they were with Cam Newton and that group of receivers and running backs, I think the Cowboys can score a ton. The problem is, I think the Seahawks can score a ton too. And I think that Cowboy defense, especially against Atlanta last week, and a team that I know the Cowboys turned the ball over a lot, gave Atlanta a lot of really good field position in that game, giving them a big lead. But like, Julio Jones was hardly even involved in that game for Atlanta. And Matt Ryan's not Russell Wilson. And I think this one, I think, is just going to be a shootout, just an absolute shootout. I just don't know if either defense has the playmakers to really shut anybody down wholly. And yeah, I don't know. Seahawks, the 5.5, that seems a little high. I think I'm going to go Cowboys. Close game down to the end. I think Cowboys cover the 5.5.
Yeah, I mean, I just that over-unders on that game is 57, and I just don't see either one of these defenses doing enough to keep that number down. There's gonna be some points scored, and Mike, I don't necessarily disagree with what you mean in terms of what the product has looked like after a couple of weeks for Dallas.
Yeah,
I just think that this is a team where you said that with there's so much talent, as they do try to figure, especially on defense too, because they're gonna have to figure out what they do well on defense too. And I don't know if it's going to be you're not going to shut down Russell Wilson, but I just feel like this is one of those weird things where Zeke is third in the league in rushing yards at this point in the season. I think that they'll do enough to balance everything out to find a way to win this one. But Mike, Seattle is one of those teams that I definitely consider to be in that that short list for Super Bowl contenders this year. I agree with everything that you described them. I don't know, man. I feel like this is a Dallas win, but
Dallas have the worst secondary in the NFL.
It's pretty bad.
It's not great.
Does Russell Wilson not have Earl Thomas's number that he can give to Dallas? I don't understand.
Man, Earl.
That's a whole other deal, but I mean,
yeah.
Come on, man. I don't know what Dallas is doing, man. It just seems like they assume so much talent, or simulate so much talent, and then you don't know what to do with it. It seems like, I don't know.
Well, Mike. I mean, because we talked about I love CeeDee Lamb coming out. I thought he was the best wide receiver coming out in this draft. And when he fell to Dallas, it was almost like those shit-eating grins that they had in that draft room because of the talent that fell to them. But now that you're looking back at it, it does make sense to question, maybe although that he is that talent, maybe it wasn't the pick that they necessarily needed to make at that time. You can stockpile talent and you could try to outscore everybody every week, but in the NFL you got to make stops, and if you're not stopping anybody, you can't. It's not going to be sustainable over the long term of this season if they can't find a way to figure something out with that defense and specifically the secondary.
Yeah, they're just a train wreck on defense. When you look at the back half, I mean, the secondary is probably the worst in the league. Jalen Smith is not he wasn't worth that contract, at least from what I'm seeing the last year in the first few games this year. And then Leighton Vander Esch, man, that guy, Mr. Glass, I know he had spinal stenosis issues and things. Man, now you're just down to your defensive line who was decimated by the McCoy injury in preseason, who you thought was going to be a big part of that. And you got these defensive ends, but it doesn't really matter if you can't cover the guy for 2 seconds, because it's going to take at least 2 seconds for a defensive end to even have a chance to get there. So, yeah, it just looks like a train wreck on defense. And my parents and my specifically my dad and my brother are huge Cowboys fans, and just talking to them, it's just man, this is too talented to be this 8-win, 9-win team every year. It's something, and I don't think it's the play. I think it's something from the top, the way I see it. So
it's Jerry.
Yeah.
Are you saying that Jerry Jones, as an owner and general manager, is not the guy to lead the Dallas Cowboys anymore? I'm shocked.
They should hire Bill O'Brien as general manager.
Oh God! Can you imagine the power struggle?
That's why it could never happen, right? That sort of match could never happen.
Never.
He can't give up control to his own son. How is he going to give it up to B.O.B.?
Yeah,
Come on.
It's like Tom Herman hiring Urban Meyer to be his offensive coordinator.
Right.
That's
Exactly.
Good. That's good.
A little bit of a power struggle there, conflicts of interest. But
As long as you don't hire Zach Smith.
oh well, yeah, I don't think that's going to happen. I don't see him coming on board at Texas anytime soon.
Big yikes.
What a nut job.
Stranger things have happened though. I don't know, but well, all right, guys. I think Jay, we got anything else?
Hey, what about the Heat, guys? Y'all think they're going to take it?
Yeah, I think they're gonna finish that series. Yeah, I don't think they're gonna win the whole thing, but I think they're gonna win that series.
I will never count out a Brad Stevens coach team.
Yeah.
Ever.
But I also need to make a public apology just before we guys go. I apologize to Eric Spoelstra for all my Facebook posts from 2012 to saying that he could not coach, because this guy is a genius, man. So sorry, Eric, if you ever watch the Bacon and Egg show, man, I'm here. I'm here to, repent.
That's I'm sure he's among the viewership, and I'm sure
invite me down to Miami sometime,
Yeah.
Yeah. Go get out on the yacht, hash it out.
Yeah.
Bury the hatchet a little bit. Maybe Pitbull will be there to, kind of mediate things and kind of work it out, but
But that's a coaching,
royalty.
Yeah, no kidding. That's a coaching matchup though that I think we'll see for a while in that Eastern Conference between Spoelstra and Stevens. That I love to see, and younger coaches too that have won it at different. Yeah, or I guess Spoelstra started. He started off as the film guy in the basement in Miami.
It's a great story, you know.
Yeah, it really is. It's really heart touching. But the Brad Stevens stuff, you know, he's won at every level and has shown and has proven that he can coach anywhere. So that's one for the Eastern Conference that I'm excited for. Does it matter who comes out of that conference for me? No. But you know, it's been fun to watch. I like anything that Brad Stevens is associated with. So, but yeah, glad you were able to get on and repent, Mike, before we close the show out there.
For sure.
Yeah, a couple of real coaches on the bench.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, worked his way up.
Yeah.
Real company guy, you know.
They would say, "Gotta love it."
You got
Exactly.
you gotta
love it. You gotta love it.
A great shirt, by the way, too.
Yeah,
Thanks,
it
man.
is awesome.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, this was the AEW stop up in Cedar Park. Stopped and saw Le Champion. At least he was at the time. But
That's great.
yeah, it was good times, man. Y2J, the man.
I actually watched his intro to WWF back in, what was that, like 98 or whatever. That's still one of the best pops of all time.
Oh yeah. That was a big build up to that one, and then come out and the first guy you talked to was The Rock, and you're on that. Yeah, it was good, man. I'm probably gonna have to go back and watch it now. Welcome to Raw is Jericho.
And that hair, man, reminds me of a young Jay, man.
Yeah, with the being able to put it up on the ponytail at the top. Yeah, man. Hey, I'm getting there. I don't have nearly as much on the top anymore, but it's coming. It's coming in. I got my full hockey, you know, mullet and beard coming in. So
you do, man. It's some good flow going on there.
We'll see where it goes. I feel like I needed some good show hair, you know. So
Yeah, it's good
yeah,
flow.
definitely.
I have to get.
Thanks,
I'll have to find out what conditioner you're using. What kind of product
Yeah.
you're putting in that thing.
That'll be
I'll
our
pass
next
it-
sponsor. Our next sponsor.
Yeah, no kidding,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah. I'll pass that along to you off the air. Okay.
Looks nice and smooth. Very, luxurious. It's good.
Thanks.
Whatever you're doing, keep it up.
It's very well hydrated. Yes.
It's good sauce in there. So. Oh man, we're going off the rails. We're going off the rails. All right, let's wrap this
get it
thing
outta
up. Yeah, let's get
What
this
we
thing
got?
posted up, and everybody enjoy
Yeah.
the game today. Hook 'em horns,
Welcome,
and
baby.
thanks guys, and let's do it again next week.
Peace.
Thanks guys.
ATX representing. Fatal, baby. Falling on 6 on a Saturday. Can it drip and sway?